good to see you all, guys. Okay, so okay, I'll share. Fine, good, thank you. Let me now share my presentation with you. Um, as you know, all right, as you know, I was talking about role, the youth in helping to achieve the vision of ASEAN. But before we can talk about your role, of course, we need to know what is the vision of ASEAN, because how can you help achieve something if we don't know the mission? So, well, if you've been reading on ASEAN, you would know that this dream actually started back in 1997. That was when we had this original dream of ASEAN community, and at the time they said, our leaders wanted to see a concert or a community of nations living in peace, stability, prosperity, and bonded with each other in a spirit of caring societies. So that was the original dream. And also as the years went on, they tried to refine the dream, and they said that okay, this dream will be, this community will be built on three pillars: political security, economic, and sociocultural community. Because what we want is peace, prosperity, and a community, where people are able to achieve their dreams and live, on a day-to-day basis, being healthy and having, all the things that they need. Um, so fast forward to 2015, December 31st, after many years of working on that dream, officially we launched ASEAN Community. If you ask ASEAN Community, I always say ASEAN Community is a politically cohesive, economically integrated, socially responsible, and truly people-oriented, people-centered, and rules-based ASEAN. That is the kind of community that we're actually building. And that is actually the vision, for ASEAN community. What are the main elements of that vision? Well, we haven't really fully consolidated, the community. So what we're doing between 2015 until 2025, so for these 10 years, we will consolidate ASEAN community through deeper and more integration. And then we will emphasize ASEAN centrality, which means ASEAN will be in the driving seat of all the multilateral platforms and forums for dialogue within the Indo-Pacific region. And we, ASEAN, will work for more equitable development within ASEAN. But remember, while we launched ASEAN Community in 2015, that is not the end of it, because ASEAN Community, of course, is a process and it is not an event. So if you're interested to know, I will not talk about this. Actually, to get there, to get to that vision, we have prepared three blueprints. One for political security, and actually you can read here, what we want to do for political security. The main thing is about peace building and partnership. For economic community, what we want is all of this: highly integrated, cohesive, competitive, economy, a global ASEAN, where everyone is part and parcel of progress and development. But also for sociocultural community, this is the kind of community that we want, where everyone has access to opportunities for all. And we have a community that has balanced social development. So these are the details, but I will not, go into that. So the question for you is, are we there yet? Have we achieved all of this? And I can tell you that no, we're not yet there. Because, as we continue this community building process, there are challenges, okay? There are challenges. You and I know that in ASEAN, there is still a gap between the rich and poor member states. And as you know, within the countries, there are inequalities. So within ASEAN, there is a gap between some of the rich member states, rich countries. Some are developing, and some are in the middle. Also, remember the three pillars that I talked about? There is a strong need for the three of them to work together in order to avoid the silo mentality. Political needs to work with economic, and they need to work with social culture. They cannot go on parallel um, directions. Another challenge is that yes, at the ASEAN level, you know, we have many agreements, we have many commitments, and I think the most visible demonstration of this, and is when you see our leaders, they do this holding hands together. Okay, that is a very iconic ASEAN moment. So they agree at the regional level. The thing is, and the question is, at the national level, when they go home, do those commitments actually translate into national policies, national laws? And the question is, if you look at one side of our legal department, you will see that there are still many declarations or agreements that have yet to be ratified at the national level. So these regional commitments need to be translated into local commitments. That's one of the challenges we have. And then finally, I will only cite this four because there are many, and I think this is very important for the ordinary people. This idea as a community with shared values and a common identity is still far from their grasp. Besides the 97 or so have already embraced ASEAN, as a community. You live, you breathe ASEAN. Out there, the majority of our people, I think they know very little about ASEAN. So how can we have a successful integration if many people still, have no sense of identity with ASEAN, right? So this is some of the challenges, and this is where actually you can come in. This is where you can do something, yeah. And I will keep coming back at this as I continue. So the question is, what can you do in order to help? Well, let's start with the basic. Let's start with the basic. I think for you, to be able to really help, you need to know ASEAN by heart. You need to know ASEAN by heart. How do you do that? Well, first of all, you need to really, read up, meaning, um, go to ASEAN website, go to our social media, read up, some of our documents. And actually, I'm showing there, that, book, which is, we call it, Forging Together. That is our plan for the next 10 years up to 2020. But not just that, not just this serious stuff, but try to discover the ASEAN countries, the cultures, the people, and also know what are the opportunities for young people like you. And where do you find these opportunities? Well, you can always check our social media. You can always go to our website, read up on our documents, take part in ASEAN programs. There are so many activities and programs within ASEAN that actually young people can take part in. And I'm sure some of you have been to, for example, the SHIP for Southeast Asian and Japanese youth program, or the SEAP, or maybe some of you have been to Genesis, or some of you have been to exchange program. Yes, take part in those activities, and not just within ASEAN, but in your own country. And then, of course, very important, you need to familiarize yourself with your own country's commitments to ASEAN, because that will come in really helpful later. Um, One of the things that you should know is this ASEAN work plan on the youth. And the current work plan is up to this year, so we're already preparing for the next one. But at least, well, you can find this on our website, as you can see here. And those are the areas um, of this work plan. Employability, capacity building, so forth, and so on. What else can you do? Well, I think one of the other ways that you can help, is by joining those ASEAN community volunteer programs. Why do you have, I mean, why am I suggesting this? Because, by taking part in this community volunteer programs, you actually give and take. It's your way to contribute your talents and your skills to ASEAN community at the ground level,
Earphone ko nggak, Bi?
and also at the regional level.
Di atas
At
bantal
the
hijau.
same time, it is a way for you to take in something, to learn about, the host country or those host institutions. And there are many, you know, there are actually many programs, volunteer programs within ASEAN, one of which is this AYVP. This is hosted, by the a university in Malaysia. I think it's a national university, UKM in Malaysia, and you can visit the website. AYVP is held every year, and this year in August, the volunteer program will be held in the Philippines. So I think it's a 4-week program. It's a really exciting program. So this is one way that you can immerse yourself, in ASEAN community. And each time, they focus on a specific theme. These are the themes. This time, I think it's about education development because it will be hosted by the University of the Philippines. And there is a version for young professionals. This one is managed by Brunei. So this is really for youth who are, already working past their studies. Again, this is one program that you can be a part of. And in case you haven't heard about this accredited entity, it's called the CAYC. Again, it's another the youth volunteer program. If you're interested, you can Google it up and take part, in their activities. So those are about volunteerism. Third one, as a young person full of ideas and full of energy, um, many of our successful unicorns, and now they are decacorns, they have been started by young people. Look at those successful ASEAN companies. Many of them were started by young people. So if I were you, if you really want to help alleviate poverty in ASEAN, try to think of, potential enterprise. And I think the way to start is now, while you are young, while you have the energy and the time actually. So why would you do that? Well, because I think it's good to, start a business in ASEAN, because ASEAN these days, we are the fifth largest economy in the world. And that is why all of those multinational companies are coming to ASEAN, because, we have a huge labor. We have the third biggest market in the world, and so there are a lot of opportunities. So if you're thinking of starting a career or business, this is the place where you should be, in ASEAN. And if you're successful, you can help to alleviate or to close the gap between the haves and the have-nots within ASEAN. Who knows? You could be the next CEO of a unicorn or a decacorn in ASEAN. The next thing I'd like you to think about, is what about advocating for government accountabilities to ASEAN? And by that, I mean, as I told you in the beginning, one of the challenges within ASEAN is that we agree on a number of things, like a lot of initiatives, a lot of really good programs at ASEAN level. But those initiatives and commitments need to be cascaded or brought down to the national level so that they become part of the policies, parts of the laws and systems within the individual countries. Okay. Now, what can you do so that our governments really, implement their commitments? Well, I would say no. You can engage in some dialogues, some you can partner up with government agencies to see how you can help to implement some of those activities, and you can also join what's already existing advocacy initiatives in your own countries if you know of anyone. And the idea here is to remind our governments that they made those commitments to ASEAN to do this or to do that, and therefore they should um, help to materialize and implement those commitments. And I'm saying this to you, because I know that the young people are very idealistic, and this is how you navigate through the ASEAN ecosystem. As you know, this is the ASEAN Summit. This is the highest policy making body within ASEAN. Um, this is where you can actually do your advocacy. I think at the national level over here, each country has a national secretariat. So this is where you can do your engagement. Each country has a national ASEAN secretariat. I think you can send some letters or some inquiries here. You can and they do some consultations at the national level. This is where you can actually engage. But if you are part of accredited entities like the CAYC, you can actually engage at this level. Okay, at this level. So before anything goes to the summit, okay, before anything goes to the summit, everything needs to be discussed at this level. And the summit, as I said, this is where our prime ministers and our presidents meet every year and approve and come up with some decisions that have been discussed, at this level. So you might think, well, it probably is impossible for us to reach that level. Actually, no, it's not. It's not impossible, because I will tell you later. Actually, these are the meetings that are happening within ASEAN related to young people, and this is where they ask for inputs. This is where they seek for comments and views. So you can actually provide some inputs if you know the agencies in your country that are taking part in this meeting. For example, in the Philippines, it would be the National Youth Commission. Maybe in other countries, it would be your youth or Minister of Youth or something like that. So that is one level. But actually, it's possible to go to the highest level. Look at this picture. This was taken in 2017. These are the 9 people who actually got to meet the 10 prime ministers and presidents of ASEAN. Because every year, depending on the chair of ASEAN, they organize what we call the interface with the leaders. You probably know some of these people, okay, or at least one of these people. So every year they get to meet the prime ministers, and they say something. So again, this is one opportunity, and if you're lucky, if you happen to be in to be part of this select 10, or 9 people, then that's your opportunity to actually speak to our leaders, and that would be a really great opportunity. Now, remember, the young people in ASEAN, we are the largest cohort of the population. One for every 3 persons in ASEAN is a young person between the age of 15 and 35. And therefore, if the young people, in ASEAN speak, I think our governments would listen, because you see, there is power in number. And this, the projection is that, the proportion will continue. That our young people, and in ASEAN, we define youth or young person, as someone between the age of 15 to 35. And that's why, I'm encouraging you to actually find your voice and talk to our governments. And what is it that you can talk about? One of the things you can talk about is, this thing which we call the Youth Development Index. So every 5 years, we do this Youth Development Index, and we look at the situation of the youth in ASEAN. So the last study was done in 2017, and we found out, we found out that, um, on average, the young people in ASEAN, when it comes to their access to education or educational status in terms of their health and well-being, employment opportunities, youth participation, and their sense of identity with ASEAN, on average, this is a score. This is like, more than half out of the possible highest score of 1, meaning this is almost perfect. Okay, the average is, below 6. All right, and then you can see the variation of different countries. What it's showing is that of all the 10 countries, the young people in Singapore, okay, have the, we would say they're in the best situation, because in terms of those 5 domains, they're the ones who have, the ideal educational status at their age. They're really, healthy, and they have all the opportunities for employment. But look at this. What is the picture that it is telling us? As I said, there is a gap, and we need to close the gap. Okay, and what can we do? Well, we can work with our governments, with those agencies that are working in these areas, and we can, or you can probably, engage and contribute, your skills and your ideas, so that we would be able to close the gap, amongst the countries. And finally, I would encourage you to help promote ASEAN identity. Well, ASEAN identity, is that hard to define, thing about us, but it is what makes us, ASEAN. Probably, we always hear some people from, let's say, Europe saying, okay, we're Europeans, right? So why is it that they can say we're European? But what about us? Why can we not say, I'm a Filipino, but I'm also ASEAN? Or I'm Singaporean, I'm also ASEAN. I'm Indonesian, I'm also ASEAN. Or I'm from Myanmar, but I'm also ASEAN. Or I'm Malaysian, but I'm also ASEAN. For this ASEAN project to be successful, we need to be able to identify ourselves not just as, our own nationals, but also as part of ASEAN. And how do we do that? Well, first of all, we need to connect, with the ASEAN community. We need to really know, our identities, our values, our culture, our traditions, what makes us unique, and um, what are our values, that make us stand out as a community of people. And I encourage you to really talk about ASEAN. This is something so easy to do, with social media and with internet, with YouTube and all that. This is something that every one of you can actually do. And that way, you can propagate and nurture ASEAN identity. This is some of the ways, that you can actually do this. Of course, you can start by visiting, the different countries of ASEAN if you have the means to do it, or if not, you can, do a virtual visit. There are many sites within ASEAN that can allow you to actually visit these countries. But on your own, look at this ideal organization. Of course, an example is IO, communicating ASEAN to the people. That's something that we can do individually, but also, as a group. And have you seen this? This Hey ASEAN, initiative where they came together. These are alumni of the SEA program, and they, someone composed a song. They put together a really nice song about ASEAN unity. So these are examples of what you can do to talk and promote ASEAN. So my question for you is this: do we want peaceful life for all of us? Do we want lower cost of living, more choices, better jobs, ideal quality of life? Do we want opportunities to work and study within ASEAN or elsewhere? And do we really want easier travel? Well, if you want all of those, we need to work together. You know, there we have to be able to work together so we can go to the direction that we want to. And as young people, I think you have a lot to contribute to this effort. So I will stop there for now, and very quickly I will just segue to another few slides, because Jay asked me to talk about what is it that ASEAN is doing in response to COVID. Well, I can tell you, if you go to our website, you can see, these updates. This is so visible and so prominent. If you open the website, below the emblem, you can find this update. But we have done a lot. You know, sorry about the visuals, but we have done so many at the various levels: health sector, health officials, economic officials. We have come to some agreements at what we can do. You can read up, everything. And then with our partners, China, Korea, Japan, US, Italy, Japan, we're working with them in order to come up with a coordinated response. And again, all the details can be found on our website. So I will stop there. And if you want to know more about us, about what we can do together, go to our social media, go to our website, and don't forget, we are all ASEAN. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Romeo, for your incredible explanation about ASEAN. Wow, there's a lot information we got from here. Like yeah, that's a lot of things like ASEAN Youth Volunteer Program, and also ASEAN Community Volunteer Programs, and advocate for government accountabilities to ASEAN. Wow, there's a lot of things we
Yep.
got from here. Thank you so much, Mr. Romeo. And we're gonna give opportunities to uh, of the participant in this training to ask some questions to Mr.
Sure.
Romeo. Maybe you guys, if you want to ask something, you guys could write your name in chat room, and then I will let you to ask directly to Mr. Romeo. So anyone want to ask? Okay, from Netado, Muhammad Netado. Please unmute the speakers and, please unmute your microphone and ask to Mr. Romeo. Netado.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity. My name is Netado, and I'm from Indonesia. So, from your presentation, I'm actually interested with the challenges that the whole Asian community is currently facing, which one of them is about the wealth inequalities. So, my question actually going to be related to the wealth inequality itself. So, recent reports from several organizations, such as from ADB and also Forbes, have shown that the inequalities in Asian region indeed have been widened. So, my question will be, what kind of initiative and action that the Asian and also its members have been taken to combat the wealth inequality? And also, what do you think all of us as youth combat and to cope with the inequalities that are currently facing by the whole members of the ASEAN community? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Romeo. Do you want
Okay.
just
Do we wanna collect the questions?
it's
Maybe
up to you.
three, or do you want it one by one?
Yeah. Or maybe you want to
One
collect
by
all
one?
of
Yeah,
one by one?
I can start. I can start with that. You
Okay.
know. Okay. Um, so, talking about inequality, thank you, Netado. I'm glad you asked that question. If you're following ASEAN, you would know that we actually have two, what we call landmark programs to address inequality. The first one is what we call the IAI, Initiative for ASEAN Integration. Um, the initiative for ASEAN integration is specifically being implemented in order to address the inequalities and how, I mean, inequalities within ASEAN. So how do we do that? Well, within ASEAN, we have what we call, well, this is a very, a superficial a way of categorizing countries in ASEAN. So within ASEAN, we have the 6 countries that are considered already developing. Okay, so those are the 5 member countries plus Brunei Darussalam, and we have the 4 others that we call CLMV. Okay, Cambodia, Myanmar, Laos, and Vietnam. All right. So what ASEAN is doing right now is there are programs specifically dedicated, for those 4 countries so that they can catch up with the rest of ASEAN countries like, Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines, Brunei. So we are putting a lot of investments into capacity building for those countries. We're also, investing in terms of infrastructure, in terms of systems development, so that those 4 countries can actually catch up. And are we seeing results? I think so. Look at Vietnam. Actually, Vietnam is already catching up with, the economic indicators of, let's say, Philippines, or, maybe I think Indonesia. And of course, it's not just because of the support of ASEAN, but the country itself has really, done a lot of things. So um, that is, officially in terms of the program. Okay. Now, ASEAN, on top of the IAI program, we're also doing other programs that are targeted to specific groups. For example, we have a dedicated program for small, medium, micro enterprises. Okay, because ASEAN is not just for big business. ASEAN is also for small, medium scale enterprises. So we have dedicated programs, to train those owners of small industries, to link them up with the market and provide the resources that they need. So what I'm saying is ASEAN, has many programs to address inequality at the national, but also at the regional level. So I'll stop there, and I'd like to make way for some other questions.